So how's the team shaping? We're like I said, we're recording. How's the team shaping up?
Team shaping up good. Yesterday was our first official practice. So we had, I don't know, 6.5 weeks of preseason, where we do, in Georgia, you're allowed 4-on-1s, which is 4 players to 1 coach workout. So we do 4-on-1 individual workouts. We do conditioning 2 to 3 days a week. And we're going to lift 3 or 4 days a week as well. So we did that for about 6.5 weeks and gave them about 4 days off or so before our first practice yesterday.
So y'all can officially start practice on the 20th.
That's
Is
right.
it October 20th?
Yep.
Is that kind of a yearly thing?
Yeah,
okay.
usually by that time. In the past, well, we start the same time Alabama does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you got your whole complement of players now? Are you waiting on some football guys?
Yeah, we have 3 guys that are on the football team, varsity level guys that are playing football, and so they have probably they have 2 regular season games left, and then the playoffs, and then kind of go from there as far as when they return. But we have right now with us, we probably have 8 other guys that are varsity level players that are with us right now. We got 19 in the gym. That's JV included. So yeah, that's what we got now. So we got out of that 8 that are back. You have all 8 are returners from last year's team, which helps as far as experience, how to practice, how to prepare, just the whole leadership thing that you hope your kids get. So as far as getting practice started, getting rolling, the leadership, that's it's pretty good as far as this year goes so far.
So y'all are probably pretty excited about this upcoming year. I mean, there's probably a lot of anticipation that y'all may be really good again this year.
Yeah, we got a chance to be good again, especially with the experience back. Last year we were 20-9, and we lost by 5 there in the Sweet 16, and that whole group, we lost 2 seniors out of that group, but even those 2 seniors that we lost, was a very inexperienced group as far as the year before that we had 5 seniors that started for us. First time I've had that, and they played majority of the time just because they were an experienced group. So last year's group was very inexperienced as far as game situations, and just playing the schedule that we're used to playing, our tough non-region schedule. And so out of the 8 guys we played last year, we have 6 of them back. And then plus, we got 2 guys that came up from our JV that dressed out varsity that are with us. We have a freshman that'll be a varsity player that's with us right now. That'll be an impact guy for us. So, and then plus, you got the other 3. There's a lot of anticipation within our program, obviously. Just because, I always say, people say, we've won 20 games plus a year for ever how many years is a good thing, and it is. But to me, like, the ultimate goal is to go in the season on a win, and so that's kind of our ultimate goal. And for me, if we don't get that, then we had a good year, but was it really successful? It's kind of hard to.
Well, let's ask that question. I mean, how do you measure success? I mean, because, and I've talked about this a lot, and I've been thinking about this a lot, even though I've been out of coaching for, officially for 16 years. I mean, like, a lot of times we measure success so much with wins and losses. So when you look back at a season, what do you deem as successful?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's a lot more than just wins and losses. To me, our ultimate, I guess, mindset is kind of the, what everybody says. We want to try to get better every day, right? And the old cliche term of 1% better, right? But we just want to make sure we're getting the most out of our kids every day. And we want to make sure as individuals, that we're constantly being givers versus takers.
Mhm.
You know, we want to make sure we're giving something back to the program, giving something back to practice. You know, we try to preach to our guys, um, everybody on our team has a value
Mhm.
regardless of minutes played. Your value is not based off your minutes played. And so, if we can kind of get everybody to buy into their roles, whatever that may be on the team, and that changes every year personnel wise. That may change for you every year as in personnel wise. If we can get everybody buying their roles, everybody understand that we all bring value, and then, everybody work every day to make themselves a little bit better, whatever that may be, um, to make the team overall better, and then whatever happens at the end happens. But, you know, um, to me, if you're getting all of that out of your team and all that out of your program, and you're trying to embrace the experiences along the way, you're building the relationships along the way, and you put everything you could into the program. And I'll tell our guys, the program's not just, the 10, 15, 20 guys we got between the line at practice. I mean, it's parents or
Mhm.
fans or community or school.
Mhm.
If you're putting everything to make the program better, at the end of the day, you end on a loss, okay, but you probably still had a lot of success.
Yeah. Could you live with an 11-15 record where your kids are working their fannies off every day in practice and giving it all they got, and they're just not quite as good as other teams that you've had? Could you live with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously there's a as a competitor, you wish you could be better if you were 11 and 15, because you want to go win every game.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're getting the most out of your kids, and you're doing, everybody's doing their part to try to win.
Mm-hmm.
I think that at the end of the day, you got the most out of your kids.
See, I look back and I look back at my coaching career with a lot of regret. But the regret is not that it is that I wish I would have won more.
Yeah,
But it's should I have, that I should have invested in my players more.
yeah,
And I'm thankful for, not trying to take a sappy turn here too quickly, because we'll get to that. But like, you know, I'm thankful for our relationship,
Yeah.
because we've still continued to talk. And you played for me, obviously, but like it's, I wish that I would have cultivated more relationships. I had a podcast interview with Ronnie Driver, who's the head coach at Oakman. He just got the job. He was assistant at Jasper, and he got the head job at Oakman. But I said to him that it really wasn't about my players; it was about winning. And I didn't. What I meant by that was I wish I would have made it more about my players, and made it more about relationships and investing in them. So, I'm looking at things from in the rearview mirror. So
I think that, to me, when I got into coaching, I guess was, obviously I'm an extreme competitor. I mean, I promise I want to win. I want to beat you at anything we do, right? Doesn't matter if we're in here playing checkers. I want to make sure you leave
Yeah.
here like, hey, he's a good checker. He's
Yeah.
good at checkers. But I got into it because, the most influential people, in my life were my coaches.
Mhm.
And my coaches along the way, the relationship I built with them was very important to me as a player, and it's something I always valued. And my coaches probably know more about me,
Mhm.
Than probably my parents do.
And part of the reason why we've got a good relationship now, I think, is because you've done a good job of cultivating that.
Yeah.
You do a good job of that. I mean, you stay in touch with people, and you.
No, I think it's
I didn't
important.
mean to interrupt you, but I mean, I just want to say that.
Well, I say all that is, I do think the relationship part of the thing is why I got into the profession. I tell my guys every year, I tell the parents every year when we have parent meetings, like I'm gonna pour everything I got into these kids like they're mine. I want them to come by the office. I want them to feel comfortable to come tell me something that's going on in their life that maybe they don't want to tell their parent, right? And trust me with that information. And 10 years from now, after they graduated, and they come back to wherever I'm at, in this case, Rome, Georgia, like I want them to come back and say, man, I want to go see Coach West and let's go play golf. I tell them that every year. Let's go get some dinner, so that piece of it is very important for me. That overall, relationship part of my team. My guys now that I have, like I always call them like my guys because like I feel like that's our practices are scripted out and well run. I'm not going to be able to coach them hard and get after them in a certain way if they didn't know that I cared about them. And so I make sure that it's very important to me to build that relationship with all of them as a team and as individuals. So, that way they become very, coachable kids, meaning that it's coming from a good spot. It's not just some guy out here that don't care about it, that only cares about winning.
But from a coach's standpoint, you've got to care about them. And see, that's the thing. Like that was my issue. And I don't necessarily want to make this about me, but I just want to relate in this way that what did I value? And at that time in my life, I was valuing winning. And so had I valued the player relationship like you do, obviously, then maybe I could have gotten more out of it. And so I think that's an awesome thing. But again, you do. It's not only that you say you care about them and they know you, but you've actually got to care about them.
For sure.
And so like that's that, and it just goes. I think it goes back to what you value. Obviously, you want to value winning. As a coach, I mean, you're not into it to lose. Nobody goes into coaching to lose, but then also you've got to have that other piece that hey, I'm gonna be a relationship guy. I'm gonna care about my players and really truly actually care about them.
And like I said, not to repeat, but like those are the coaches. My coaches were always the most influential. That I always agree with them as a player or see where they were coming from or understand their philosophies or ways, not always, but always kind of just said, okay, that's my coach. And I trust the way he's doing things because at the end of the day, maybe he thinks that's what's best for us as a team, so, and I don't know. I just always, you hear too many times, especially nowadays where, it's always the coach's fault. The coach does this, and the parents want to blame the coaches. And I just never wanted to be that guy that puts the blame on somebody else other than myself, So I try to teach my kids the accountability factor and try to teach them things along the ways that I think that they will carry on when they leave high school.
And there are bad coaches out there, but like, you've still got to take ownership in what you're doing as a player.
Absolutely.
To your point. So like, I mean, going youth sports. Okay, you can have a terrible youth coach, or you could have a terrible middle school or high school or college coach. But that doesn't negate your as a player that you just say, oh well, it's the coach's fault, so I'm just going to check out and not try. So it's still the player's responsibility to step up in that regard.
Absolutely, like I said, it's just, it goes back to just, like I said, to trusting that, we have a program, kids trusting the coach that they have the best interest for them, the coach trusting the kids that, that they're going to do what they're supposed to do, what you've asked them to do in order to make the team successful. And then push out all those outside influences, outside the lines that, people at home are not always going to see it the way the coach sees it. People at home are not going to always understand why their son's not playing or, why he's not allowed to do certain things.
They don't understand the complexities of offense and defense. They don't understand the complexities of the team.
As much as the
dynamics. And in most instances, I think that coaches don't do things that are personal. Like they're going to put the best players out there. They won't win.
Oh, at the end of the day, I mean, that's what you're hired and fired on winning. Winning and losing. You're hired and fired on.
Let me not put this kid in that's good because I just have a grudge against him. I don't think that happens a whole lot.
That's right. No, and at the same time, I don't think coaches are trying to, take outside influences out on that kid.
Right. Right.
Whatever that may be, parents or whatever outside, AAU coaches or whatever it is. that may contact coaches,
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to do a good job not taking it out on that kid, because a lot of times the kid don't even know that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it just gets tougher every year with stuff like that. But that's why I think it's even more important to me to build those relationships with those kids
Yeah.
and let them know that, like, I'm your biggest cheerleader. Like,
Yeah.
I promise you, like, I want you to be successful at whatever you do. At the same time, when you leave here, when you go to college, or maybe you don't get admitted to a college, who's going to fight that battle for you?
Mm-hmm.
Is your parents going to call the dean of the school and say, why didn't you let Johnny in my school like he does your like you got to kind of take that responsibility and keep fighting and understand your things are not always going to go your way.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times a coach is a father figure type
Oh,
figure
absolutely.
in a person's life. I mean, I honestly, I kind of feel that way about our relationship. Not that I'm your dad or anything like that, but I take on another male role in your life, and I want to try to be a good example to you.
For sure.
It's interesting how basketball has taken you all over the place. You've been in Iowa. I mean, you've been in Birmingham. You've been in Marion, Alabama. You've been in Anniston. You've been in Apalachicola. Now you're here in Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been kind of a wild ride. It's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, for sure. I got out of college and just, at a time I thought I just wanted to be, when sports was done in college, I thought I was done with it, and wanted to get in my degree field, which was business, and did that. I worked for the government for a year. It wasn't necessarily like, I didn't wake up every day like, man, I can't wait to get to the cubicle every day and sit there. It wasn't exciting for me, I guess. I had a chance to go back to my old high school and be an assistant. There was a couple kids there at the time that when I was in college, I used to come home in the summer and they would play with us, or I'd go play with them or work them out. And so they were seniors at the time. So my sister at the time was at the school as well.
Were you an assistant under Burkett?
I was.
Did you go back under Burkett?
No, I went under a guy named Jonathan Miller, who was my assistant coach in high school.
Okay.
Burkett was at Hoover at the time.
Okay, gotcha.
And so Coach Miller was coaching football and took on the head basketball job. So, like, if I didn't come back, the basketball kids that didn't play football were, they didn't have anybody to work with. And so I kind of got things started in the preseason with them and coached with them for a year. And, had a good year, went to the Sweet 16 that year at Sachs. And then was kind of just at home, really. And the principal at the time at Oxford High School called me and basically just wanted to bring me up there. And he offered me a job kind of that just on the spot to help out with boys and girls basketball at Oxford. There was a girls coach there that was trying to get the girls program started named Tanya Peoples, Tanya Tice, was her maiden name. And then Joel Van Meter, who's still there now, was the boys coach, who I've known since I played when he was at Jacksonville State. And so I took the job at Oxford and never really thought about getting education. I took a digital design job. I had no idea. I just remember my first day on the job. We had these Mac computers. I didn't even know how to turn it on. And I'm supposed to teach this class.
Right.
They gave me a book to teach, and I didn't even know how to turn a computer on. I've never seen a Mac computer like that at the time. And so I did that. I taught that class for a year. And then I stayed at Oxford and taught a business class after that within my degree field. But I taught it and helped out. So I was there at Oxford for 2 years. And on Labor Day, got a call from a guy named Dennis Pilcher, who was the head coach at Iowa Central Community College.
How did he find out about you?
So he knew Coach Van Meter.
Okay.
And Joel Van Meter worked for him years ago when he kind of got to coaching.
Okay.
And he just called Coach Van Meter, and he's just like, look, I'm looking for an assistant if you knew anybody. And Van Meter called me up. I was a single guy and living in Anniston. And, all I had was, a dog and a house, really, and so Coach Pilcher called me up, and we talked on Labor Day, kind of sent him my resume. Didn't really know, what I thought about it. I thought it also, once again, on the competitive side, I thought it'd be a lot of fun to kind of get my feet wet and that on that side of things. And kind of, On the next Tuesday, he called me back and offered me the job. I was at Oxford, and I flew up to Des Moines, Iowa, and drove to Fort Dodge on a Friday to look at the school. And which Coach Pilcher was, he was in his mid 60s at the time, and I love him. I talk to him all the time now, still. And basically, his whole thing was like, why you want to come to see the school for? Do you want to coach college basketball or not? But I went up there and visited the school on a Friday, came back on Saturday, talked to Oxford. I worked through Wednesday at Oxford, and they were very, instead of, very receptive to that, and had a yard sale on a Friday, Saturday at my house, sold everything I had except for clothes and my TV. They even got rid of my dog.
How much did you haul in? 75, $80?
Yeah, I mean, like I just, and that following Tuesday, I was at practice. I mean, I remember walking into practice, and Coach Pilcher had no idea I was going to be there that soon. And
it was like Norman Dale showing up.
Yeah, I showed up. I had, I was in Fort Dodge, Iowa, in the Midwest. I had a T-shirt and shorts on, and I walked in there, and it was like, 49 degrees in September, and just kind of, I don't know, that was it. I was there for 4 years, loved it. I mean, traveled the country.
I mean, you had to go all over the Midwest.
Yeah, I traveled all through the Midwest.
Nebraska.
Yeah,
I mean, a couple times you called me in Nebraska.
Yeah. Recruited Nebraska hard, recruited Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, Detroit.
Well, let's fixate on that thought for a second.
Yeah.
What was your favorite place that you went to on a recruiting visit? What were some neat areas that you really liked?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of different spots that I kind of liked, I mean, Chicago was a cool city.
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis is a cool city. I recruited St. Louis. I had some family in O'Fallon, so it was kind of neat to get back and see them. Kansas City, Missouri was
Mm-hmm.
I had a former high school teammate that played college football at William Jewell, and he lived in Kansas City, so it was kind of cool to go see those guys. Minneapolis was a neat city,
You like the bigger cities?
I mean, those were just kind of stuff you don't ever.
Yeah.
Coming from small town Alabama, you don't ever think that you're going to go up there and see all this. But probably my best experience, well, I guess I met my wife in Nebraska.
Yeah.
So I met her out recruiting. That was a good recruiting trip. But probably my best experience is I signed a couple kids from Melbourne, Australia, and so I got to go over there for 2 weeks. And I was with a guy over there. His name's Luke Sunderland. At the time, he was Andrew Bogut's personal trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was with Andrew Bogut and Luke Sunderland over there for 2 weeks within their facility, and worked out a ton of kids for 2 weeks, traveled all over Australia. And that was, always before I met my wife. That was before I met her, but I kind of met her around the same time. I was offered an opportunity to coach in Australia within this organization. And that was going to be something that I would have done just for the experience.
I played basketball in Australia.
Did you?
For a very short period. When I was like 14 years old, we went with the International Sports Exchange over to Sydney.
Okay, yeah.
And we drove over out in the country and played some Australian high schools and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was a neat experience. But
that was probably my best recruiting-wise experience. Now I recruited the South really hard just because I knew the area, and I thought that, in the Midwest and in the South are two different basketball players. I mean, there's just two different kinds. Obviously in the South, we got a lot more athletes. There's a lot more athleticism, speed, quickness, versus you get to the Midwest. My experience in the Midwest, there's just a lot more, fundamental players, but, not as many athletes. And there was guys that I thought that we had a tough time signing in the Midwest that were like really good athletes because everybody was after them, versus some kids that were in the South that may not get those looks that could really, be successful in the Midwest, that I knew that guys in the Midwest would not recruit. So if those kids were willing to get away from home, I thought we had a good chance to be successful. So in 4 years in Iowa, or 3 recruiting classes, 4 years, I probably had 15 kids out of the South that came to the Midwest and played junior college ball. And those kids end up signing, everywhere from NAIA to Division I, out of there. So,
What'd you like about Fort Dodge?
Probably the Midwest is farmland, and so all the cities are you travel. So like if you were to travel from Birmingham to Jasper, well, between there's nothing but cornfields. You go to Jasper to Gadsden, Alabama, is going to be cornfields. So that's how the Midwest is. So what I liked the most, probably at Fort Dodge, was probably just the people I coached with. And, I was there at a time where a lot of the assistant coaches in other sports were in the same age. So once again, just kind of being a relationship guy, I was in those guys' weddings, and still keep in touch with those guys. They're coaching at, one of them's the assistant golf coach at Georgia. One of them's the assistant track coach at Northern Arizona. One was at Western Kentucky, and one's out in Oregon, so just kind of keep in touch with those guys. And it was a cool experience. When I was there, I kind of started a little team of just guys that used to play, and we would play in the we actually played a prison league. So we would travel around in Iowa and play these prisoners inside the prison at their gym, and just play basketball game, like refereed basketball game.
Wow.
And so we kind of started that, and that was a cool experience for me. And
there's some pretty good players.
Yeah, there's really good players, and
there were inmates.
That were inmates, yeah.
Yeah, I guess they play all the time.
Yeah, I mean, and that was kind of a, like I said, cool experience, just because, one, it's a surreal experience, because when the gates close behind you, you hear them lock, it's kind of like you're in prison now.
Yeah, it's for real.
Yeah. And, we would play in these gyms, and there'd be, 200, 300 inmates at the game, and you talk to these guys. I mean, eventually you got to know some of them just because you go play over there ever so often. And, obviously those guys just, made a mistake and they were in there. It wasn't like they were just bad people, but
some of them might have been.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that was a good experience for us. So Fort Dodge, I still go back. There's a camp in, there's a camp in Iowa now that I started working with Don Showalter, who's USA Director of Youth Development, USA Basketball. It's called Snow Valley. It's at Wartburg College, and in
Wartburg, Wartburg.
That's right.
Okay.
And they have 4 sessions up there. They have a book out called Last of the Cowboys, and the book's basically about Snow Valley, how the camp originated, where it originated. And, it's kind of like the last camp where you go stay overnight at a camp, and it's basketball from 6:15 in the morning is the first session, and the last one's probably 10:30 at night. And it's just, it's not like your camps where you just go play games. You play one game a day.
And it's still going on now.
Yeah, yeah. And there's probably about, the session I was at, there's 375 kids, 6th grade through 11th, and 70 coaches from all over the world. I mean, international coaches there. I mean, and that's probably one of the coolest things I do now. So I get back to Fort Dodge and get back to Iowa.
And you coach at that camp.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. So it's that's a great experience. There's a lot of coaches there that I still keep in touch with now.
Definitely makes me want to send my son there.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Sawyer, my oldest, is 10. And so he got to go. Coach Showalter let him come to camp this year, stay in the dorms. They're responsible for getting themselves up. They got to get in the gym. They're dressed, ready to go out of the dorms. They're on the court by 6 o'clock, 6:15's first session. And so he turned 10 in April. We went in June. And so he was the youngest kid at camp by, basically 2 grades. Mm-hmm. So it was a great experience for him. There was probably 100 kids. He was in the 6th through 8th grade division. And he would, which I guess as a dad was kind of cool. He was awarded he was voted on by the coaches. He was the best passer at camp.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool, being a 10-year-old. And
which is even more ironic because did you ever pass? I mean, was that?
Well, I thought if we needed to score, I was going to have to be the guy that would score.
Right. Yeah. There weren't that many options.
Yeah. I could have passed it, but we had to score too.
Right. That'd have been to the detriment of the team. So
if the team needed me to put points on the board, so
right. Well, let's. I know we could talk about Florida, but let's talk about Darlington.
Yeah.
Because What an incredible place this is.
Absolutely.
And what an opportunity you've had to be here for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, give us the spiel, give us the recruiting spiel
Yeah.
this place.
Well, first off, I'm from Anniston, as you said, and we're only an hour and 15 minutes from that area. And I never heard of Darlington. I've heard of Rome, Georgia. Played at Berry College before.
When you're playing at Birmingham Southern.
When I was in high school.
Okay.
We were to like camps.
Gotcha.
But my college coach at Birmingham Southern was Mitch Cole, who's the associate head coach over at Texas A&M now. He was at Berry College at the time. I left college coaching when I got married and had Sawyer, just for more or less family reasons. Not, selfishly, I'd probably still be in college somewhere coaching, but it wasn't the best thing for family. So I took that job in Florida, and we had 2 good years. But when Darlington job opened, our head of school and our athletic director reached out to Coach Cole over at Berry and just basically, do you know anybody out there? And Coach Cole mentioned me and reached out to me, and Darlington recruited me over here. My family and I came and visited, and was just kind of blown away with the opportunities, not of athletics at the time, but the opportunities for our kids in academics.
Mm-hmm.
Darlington's a college preparatory school. We're a pre-K through 12, all on the same campus. The academic regimen's tough. It's not by a course. We don't have a course of study. We don't have to follow any course of study through the state. So the teachers get to teach what they think is important. Our high school teachers teach based off your SAT, ACT, and in your college preparatory classes. We have several AP classes here the kids take. And so I thought, if there was ever an opportunity that you can do so, what was best for your kids or give them the best opportunity, you're going to do that. And even though Florida was a great place, we're outside of St. George Island. We're on the beach every other day, every weekend. It wasn't necessarily the best opportunity out academically for my kids. And so that's kind of why we came here. That was
when you're in Florida.
That's right. That was the recruiting spiel that sold me in Darlington was the academic opportunity. And
this is historically a strong, very, very strong academic place.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look, our senior class this past year was awarded a little over $7 million in academic scholarship, and that's not including our Hope Scholarship, which is what Georgia residents is qualify for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is academic money awarded by universities for kids that graduate.
But people in Georgia that have grown up in Georgia, live in Georgia, they know about Darlington. Like, they know about the tradition and the heritage that this place has.
Yes. I mean, and we have so many alumni, obviously, that are our biggest Indians for the school, based off their experiences as well. And so, our kids in grade 9 through 12, they take classes, and it's kind of like a college schedule, meaning, on Monday, let's say on Mondays, your first day of school, and you're going to take your classes 1, 3, 5, and 7. And on Tuesday, you're going to take 2, 4, 6, 8. And it rotates like that for 8 days. So on Wednesday, you'll take 3, 5, 7, 1, and 4, 6, 8, 1, 8, 2, So it rotates like that for 8 days on an 8-class rotation. Now, those kids only take 6 classes. And so they have 2 free periods in that 8-period day that's a free period for them. Now, what they do in their free time is really solely up to them. They can go to the student center. They can do homework. They can come to the gym. They can, if they're an athlete, they can, I'm just going to speak on basketball. They can come shoot. They can get an individual workout in. If they need treatment, they can meet with one of our 2 full-time athletic trainers and get treatment. And so it's just like college. I can sit here and say, and this is my 7th year, I haven't had a kid yet to leave Darlington and go to college and come back and say they struggled with time management. They struggled with responsibility of being places on time. They struggled with the rigor, because they teach them how to work, teach them how to do their homework. They teach them how to study. They teach them, obviously the time management. We have a demerit system here. If class starts at 9:30 and you're there at 9:31, you're going to get into merit, and so all those things are preparing them for after Darlington life, and so, um, and on the same side as that is, we have 32 different countries this year represented at school, so we have international students, we have a boarding side, and then we also have a day side as far as students. So 9 through 12, we got probably 430 kids. You probably have close to 200 that live on campus. And so a little less than half live on campus. And out of those kids that live on campus are domestic residents, so kids from within the U.S. And then you have 32 countries represented where you have kids, that are international.
But it seemed like as we were walking across campus earlier that the kids they're engaged. They're not. I mean, there was maybe a couple kids that were laying on the couch in the student center or something like that. But it was, they were doing something. They were
Right.
they were having conversations, or they were playing volleyball or playing ping pong.
Yeah.
Or, they were just. It seems like the campus is just kind of bustling.
Yeah.
You don't see that everywhere. So do you think that has a lot to do with the culture of the school?
Absolutely.
That it kind of. They're engaged in something.
Yeah,
And that's a very positive thing.
Yeah, the culture of the school just overall, I mean, if you had to describe it in one word, would just probably be community. We're our own community here in the school. You walk across campus, which you wouldn't know unless you knew the kids, but you got kids in there playing ping pong in the student center during a free period. You got a kid that was in there that's from Rome, Georgia, and he was playing against a kid that lives in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
There's two kids on the couch studying. One of them's from Nigeria, and the other one's from Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And those kids didn't know each other before they got here. And so it's just kind of a community where school does a really good job at involving everybody within our community in several different school events, weekly, where these kids get to know each other. And it doesn't matter what your background is, they just kind of mesh, and that was when I took the job here, to me, that was kind of they sold me on that because, I think it's one of those lost things at a lot of high schools. They just don't have that community feel. You go to school, you may go to practices, you go home. These kids come to school, they interact with kids from all over the world. They go to practice, you're going to interact with kids from all over the world. And when practice is done, they may all go to the cafeteria together. They may go downtown and eat together.
And then some of them are staying on campus.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and they're, it builds a good vibe. Support, why everybody supports each other in whatever they're involved in. You come out here on Sunday, we had a soccer game within our soccer academy, and you got bleachers full. We had a playoff volleyball game last week, bleachers are full. And so it just kind of gives you that overall, engagement and community feel. My first week here on the job, my very first week, we're having individual workouts during preseason. My son's probably 4 at the time. And, the school, and it's probably made me a bad parent in a way where I don't always know where my kid is inside the building. Meaning, I know he's safe, I know he's looked after, I know he's taken care of. But how it is, you go to some school, you got to have an eye on your kid. You better know where he's at. You don't know who's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And my first week on the job, my son wanted to go down and shoot basketball at 4 years old in our practice facility inside of our building. And so I let him. Our workouts are done. I got to go in the gym and find him. He's in there playing basketball. He's got his shirt off. He's one of the guys. He's 4. And we leave. My family and I go to the cafeteria to experience that side of things. And these 3 students walk in, that are all from different parts of Asia. And they all come up to my 4-year-old son, and they already know his name. They're like, they give him the little high five all the kids do. And I'm like, Sawyer, who are they? Who are those guys? He's like, oh, he's 4. So he's like, oh, those are just my Chinese friends. And I'm just like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Where you're going to network for 4 years, or if you're here in pre-K for 13 years, right? You're going to network, or 14 years, you're going to network with all these kids from all over.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to build relationships with them from all over. And when you leave Darlington and you leave college and you're going to get a job, and you're like, well, I knew a kid that his parents did this. He was from, the state of South Carolina or Texas or Oregon or wherever he may be from, that his dad's involved. I'm going to give him a call, and so, the community feel within that is very unique, and it's something that you're not going to get, at 90% of your high schools that I've been around, right? That you're just not going to get that. And so I think that's a cool experience for anybody. It's a very unique experience for my kids.
Tell us about y'all's basketball schedule this year.
Yeah, so
some pretty cool places.
Absolutely. Basketball wise, we're part of it's a 7-team region. So, you have 12 region games that you play. We're allowed 25 games total for a year in Georgia. And so our non-region schedule is really tough. We're considered a single A private school. And so single A through 3A private play in the same playoff system as far as postseason goes. And so one of the things I try to do is we're going to play a tough non-region schedule. Our first home game of the year, we play St. Pius out of Atlanta, whose point guard just signed at Clemson. We're going to play Mount Vernon School out of Atlanta as well, who's got 2 mid-major players on there. We're going to travel to Savannah in a showcase event where you'll have, half a dozen college coaches on the baseline, and there'll be schools kind of from all over the state. And we're going to play Calvary Day and Putnam County. Both have Division I players. And you're going to play them in front of college coaches. We're going to go over to Oxford, Alabama, and play in Joel Van Meter's event. It's called the Larry Davidson Classic, where you'll have another 6 to 10 college coaches there. You're going to play some of the best teams in the state of Alabama. We play Auburn High School, who's got a Division I guard. Marquise Daniels' son plays over there. So our non-region schedule, our schedule is one, it prepares us for the postseason, and 2, it allows our guys who have aspirations to play at the next level to be exposed, to have that exposure, whether it's in front of college coaches or social media outlets or state coverage representatives. They're going to get their name out there. We're not going to. I don't believe in. Once again, I just believe in doing what I think is best for the program and our kids. And we have several kids that have aspirations to play at the next level. If I go play in just a rinky-dink Thanksgiving or Christmas tournament or post-Christmas tournament, they're not going to. I'm not doing what's best for them. I'm not getting them the exposure they need. And so we're going to. Every year our non-region's tough like that, and we're going to go play in those events. And by doing that and having success, we get invited to other events. Last year we played at the State Farm Arena, which was a unique opportunity for our guys. We get invited to that every year now, and where you're going to play another tough opponent on the Atlanta Hawks floor. I mean, how cool is that? How many guys can say, if you want to play in college or not, can say they did that, So our schedule this year is definitely got a lot of challenges. I know there's some games on our schedule that are circled by our guys, but this kind of goes back to being the head coach and trying to keep them grounded and understand we just got to get better every day and not look ahead versus what's in front of us, And our head of school here said a few years ago, which I think is very important, and it sticks with me every day, is just, I tell my guy, be where your feet are, right? And so that's kind of what we try to do every day is,
just be present.
Yeah, not to get biblical, but, read a verse the other day, and it says, you can't worry about tomorrow as today has his own problems to worry about, and you worry about tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where, we try to preach that every day to our guys, just kind of be present, be where your feet are, worry about today. And it's the same thing. And, any profession, I guess you could say, is, we don't want to look ahead and worry about things down the road. So,
from a distance standpoint, you really hadn't gone that far. I mean, you're an hour and 15, is that right? 15 minutes away from where you grew up.
Right.
I mean, but you've been a long way. I mean, you've come a long way, and I'm very proud of what you've done, and I hope you know that. But do you look back at the journey, and especially where you are now, and do you have peace about that? Are you satisfied? Do you feel like you found success?
Yeah, no, I think that like I said, I think there's times where you look back and you're like, you always wish or would wish you did stuff a little bit differently down the line or in the past. But I think that, within my faith, you just kind of understand that, God had a plan for me, and this was His plan. There were our plans that we always have or look back and say, "Wish," that wasn't necessarily the plan, right? And so I have a lot of peace within that. Like this was what was written out for me, regardless if it was how I would want it or how I wanted it, or it was just that was the plan that was for me. It wasn't my plan. My like I said before, selfishly, I'd love to still be in college and probably still could have been, but somewhere within God's plan, that wasn't going to be the best route for me, and now obviously for my family. And so no, I think that I have a lot of peace at where I've been and where I've came from and the people I've met along the way and where I'm at now. Darlington is, our program. We've built a program and a brand, I guess, here, just based off really just being hardworking, resilient guys, and so our program is what we make it, and so I feel like that that's success. We've had a lot of success doing it that way. So no, I mean, to answer your question, yeah, I have a lot of peace at what we've done.
That's awesome.